no money at all. If you drop out of university, it means that you find it too difficult or demanding, or it's not for you, and you decide to leave and just go and perhaps join the world of workers, and perhaps that's a good thing. Okay, if you lash out at someone, it means you suddenly attack them. Kids often lash out if they get offended. They suddenly start attacking someone. And so this one's very similar to hit out at, but hit out at could be used metaphorically, but so could lash out. You could say the Prime Minister has lashed out at her critics, meaning she has attacked her critics. She's defended herself. She's stood up for herself and lashed out at her critics. So lash out, like hit out at, can be metaphorical or realistic, in which case it would be violent. If a meeting drags, if the boss drags out the meeting for 5 hours, or he draws it out for 5 hours, it means he makes it very long, much longer than it should be, and it becomes tedious. So please remember that we say the meeting dragged on for 5 hours, drag on, the meeting dragged on, or the boss dragged the meeting out. That's the way we use those two phrasal verbs. If you wrap up the lesson with a quiz, then you round off the lesson with a quiz. I would say wind up is a little different actually, because wind up is end up. It's not quite wrap up. You wrap up the lesson with a quiz, you round off the lesson with a quiz, but you might say wind up is exactly the same as end up. So you might say a distant relative of mine died, and in the end I wound up with, see, very often with, wind up with, end up with, I wound up with a few £100. And you might say I ended up with a few £100, yeah? And it means you were left with. Okay, prop up. When I was making this building, I had to prop up the roof, or I had to prop up a board while I put the insulation on another part of, under another part of board, or I had to prop up the insulation while I put the board up and screwed the board into place. So prop up means hold something up. I propped the insulation up with a long piece of wood, and that did the job for me. But prop up just means hold something up with an object, or with your hand. You could prop something up with your hand as well. And this one can be used metaphorically as well. You might say that the economy is being propped up by very low interest rates, something like that. And you can certainly say the same thing with shore up. You can say the economy has been shored up by low interest rates. Shore up means prop up as well, very, very similar. If you do up your flat, you maybe do the walls, you do the floors, you do the ceilings, you paint, you put wallpaper up, you put new floor down, you do up the flat, you jazz up the flat. So they're both pretty similar. I mentioned them last time. Land up, finish up, end up, wind up are all the same. And so you might say, you know, I gave the example of a will, a last will and testament, but I could have used land up or finish up for that example. I could have said I landed up with a few £100 or finished up with a few £100. It's exactly the same. So land up is another good way of saying end up. If you buy up, then usually you say buy up all the shares or buy up all the company, because buy up means buy completely, 100%. So buy up, yeah, completely. The up is being used in the sense of completely, as it often is. If you show up late or turn up late for class, it means you come late. So this one just means arrive, or it can mean appear as well. Nobody showed up at my party. Nobody appeared at my party. Okay, if time passes by or slips by, it often means goes by unnoticed. You could also use it for people and say, he passed me by in the street, but I didn't notice him. Or you could say, that piece of information slipped by me. Let me check that one. I'm not completely sure. But yeah, I think I've done these two on my phrasal verbs with by, so you could check that video as well. But we certainly say that time passes by, or people can pass by as well. slip away is down here, and if you slip away from a meeting, you leave it unnoticed. You leave the meeting without anybody noticing you. Now you can fritter away time, or you can fritter away energy, which basically means waste. Waste time. You can fritter away the hours on a Sunday afternoon just lying in bed or watching TV. You can idle away a few hours on a computer game. So this really does refer to wasting time. Get on could mean get on a bus, get on, get off for public transport, get in, get out for cars. But it could mean somebody's getting older if you say he's getting on a bit. And it could mean that the day is getting later and later and later. It's becoming night if you say it's getting on a bit, I need to go home. So it could mean get older, it could mean get later, or it could mean just get off the bus, get on the bus. Okay, stem from and be rooted in is about causes. It's like come down to and boil down to. So I gave you the example of the police and the lack of the problem of violence in the capital stems from a lack of police. Account for means explain, be able to explain something. And so you might say something like the fact that his mother had a birthday on that day might account for his absence, yeah, might explain his absence. So very common one there, quite formal, not very informal. If something rebounds on you, it has a negative effect on you. It's a negative reaction. And so you perhaps achieve something, but then it has some kind of negative consequences that rebound on you. And so this could quite often happen with some kind of new government policy. Some kind of new policy can rebound on the government because of unforeseen circumstances. They suddenly come back to haunt you. Now, point to is usually means indicate. So you might say that the recent hot summers that we've been having point to a change in the climate, or you might say it points to a change in the sun, or something like that. But indicates, point to means indicates. Add up can mean make sense without to. None of this adds up. It means none of this makes sense. But add up to means lead to or result in. And so you might say something like the lack of policemen on the streets in the capital adds up to a huge increase in crime. Yeah, leads to, results in a huge increase in crime. Okay, on to the last ones. Whew, been a long day today. If you stick to your principles or keep to your principles, it means you don't let go of your principles, you stay with them. You are a principled person. Remember the phrase, stick to your guns. It's like dig your heels in. Okay, it's like don't change your mind. Okay, if you tinker with something, it means you try and make small changes to it in order to improve it or fix it or repair it, patch it up maybe. So perhaps your remote control stops working and you decide to tinker with it and try and get it working again. But it could be anything. It's very often used with electrical items, tinker with, but it could be with any kind of mechanical item that's very often broken and you need to tinker with it to get it working again, or maybe to adjust the settings. You could tinker with something to adjust the settings. If somebody tampers with your luggage, there's something clandestine again about tampering with an object. If you tamper with an object, you're often sabotaging the object in some ways. And in the customs, again, when you go through customs, the customs officer might say, has anyone tampered with your luggage? Meaning, has anyone touched it or been doing something strange to it? He wants to know if somebody has put some drugs in there or some guns in there, and they have to ask before they open so that they can say in court, well, we asked him if he had packed his luggage himself. He said nobody had touched his luggage, nobody had tampered with his luggage, and yet he still had the clandestine goods inside. Okay, if somebody perks you up, or if the sunshine perks you up, it cheers you up. If your local restaurant has turned into a gym, it means it's been changed from a restaurant into a gym. Easy ones, really. Now, if the smell of, I don't know, if the smell of paint summons up memories from your childhood, or calls up memories, or stirs up memories, or conjures up memories, it means that it brings back memories, that the memories come flooding back to you. Now, this is all slightly different from a flashback, because a flashback is quick and unexpected, and it just takes you back to a moment in your life that you have already been, that you have already experienced, and you know, something might happen which suddenly gives you a flashback of when you were 14 and something else happened. Could be something like deja vu, where you think, I've already seen this, and it brings back memories. You flash back to that old experience. But it's also used in films, where those kind of weird films where you've got one timeline and then you have a flashback to much earlier in the person's life. So it's also used like that. If you block out memories, that means that the memories are painful and you try to block them out. You don't want to remember them. You don't want to experience those painful memories anymore. So very often people block out painful experiences from childhood, according to psychologists anyway. Now, if you put something behind you, it means that you are able to let something go. It's quite positive to put things behind you, usually, because it means that some kind of painful experience, instead of blocking it out and repressing it, you put it behind you and you can leave it behind now and carry on with your life. You can grow up without focusing and dwelling on that past moment. So these are very often related, these phrasal verbs. Now, if something eats away at your free time, it means it takes up your free time, but something could eat away at your soul as well. And so eat away at means take up or erode. Erode is perhaps a better word for it. And chip away at, it means erode. I think this one's more neutral, not really positive, chip away at, and eat away at is very often negative. And the same with eat into, it's quite often negative. So you might say that the kids are eating into your free time or into your savings. Okay, that's a very long lesson. I'm going to hold it there. Please leave a like if you've enjoyed this video. Concerning camera quality and things like that, if anybody wants to buy me a new camera, just send me an email, I'll give you my address, and with pleasure buy me a nice new camera for lessons. Otherwise, I'm just going to remove any comments about cameras, lights, microphones. They're not interesting for me. Okay, thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you all next time.